So when we're dealing with this, we actually have to mix a red and mix a blue. So we're going to start to mix the red. We're going to start with yellow. I think I showed you guys this briefly. I'm going to start with this yellow. I'm going to add red to it. And what you can see here is that we quickly, because I added a lot of red, we end up with a red-orange. Okay, the way to know that is I take my little color wheel and then just test it to it. And that's pretty spot on red-orange. Okay, so if you're using this color set, that means that once I've added some yellow to it, I won't get yellow anymore, or I won't get fuchsia anymore. It'll be mixed. But that means also that if I take this red and mix it with blue, what I'll have is a neutral color, and it'll start to become brown. Okay, does anyone know why it would start to become brown? Any ideas why if I mix this red with that blue, I get a brownish red as opposed to getting violet?
Because it has, yeah, no, you can go.
Because it has yellow, yeah. So if I take this and mix it with that, what I get is a neutral because it already has yellow. So I don't want to do that. And obviously you guys want to mix a lot more than this, right? So I think that that's pretty close to red. And to test it out, I'm going to take that and dab a little bit there. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Okay, but that means that this is how I'm going to achieve red. This same approach is going to be the way that I achieve red, and it's going to be the same way that I achieve everything in here, right? So from yellow, instead of mixing this with that to get this orange, what I would then do is start again with yellow, right? And then I'm going to add a little bit of red to it, a tiny bit of red. And if you add too much red, what you get is red-orange. And you're going to want to just say, oh, that's good enough, but it won't be, right? So you want to make sure that a tiny amount of that magenta will shift this to orange. And that's pretty close to orange. So that means an even smaller amount is what I'll need to turn this yellow into yellow-orange. And again, remember, you got to mix larger batches of this and save it, because then we're going to mix the tints, and then also we're going to use the shades, right? Actually, with the tertiaries, we're not mixing those. We're only doing primaries and secondaries with tints and shades. It's a tiny bit more. And there you have it. So, does that make sense? Any questions? So we have yellow, orange. So we say yellow is the primary, orange is the secondary. So we call these tertiary colors by the first name, or the primary mixed with the secondary. So yellow, orange. And this one, instead of being orange red, it would be red orange. Okay, and that's sort of the standard way of doing it. If you're using this, it's pretty close to the same thing. So you can definitely test things out here. All right. So, any questions on mixing the reds? Say that again.
Are we gonna follow that order?
You can follow that order because because you're not mixing like this red and that blue. You can follow this order to do all of these, and then do all the other ones, and that should work. Okay. So you can definitely follow this way of mixing for this part. Okay. So that, but remember, you got to mix a lot more than I just mixed right here. Right. So I just want to walk you guys through the process of getting your primers, secondaries, and tertiaries. So now we're gonna go to your violet. So again, actually no, we have to go to blue first, right? So start off with blue, and like I mentioned before, blue. This blue that we have is actually cyan. So we, instead of adding yellow to it, all right, we're gonna go to red. Just add a little hint of red. Oh, hopefully it didn't go too far. Again, that red is very very strong color, and you can easily shift this quickly into violet, but I think I did okay. So if you go very slowly as far as adding colors to it or pigments to each other, it's easy to control. If you go too quickly or add too much, then you have a bit of a nightmare going on. Okay, so I'm gonna test this out to my blue. Oh, a little dark. Maybe I need a little bit more of this. So I did go too far. And with this color, it's gonna be difficult to match that perfectly. Okay, so if you get an approximation, it's good enough. Okay, just a little bit of red in that blue, and that cyan is enough to turn that into blue. Still on the violet side, but it's not blue violet. All right, so I think that's gonna be good enough. Okay, so this one's not gonna match all that well. All right, it just can't look too violet. So just a little tiny bit of red will be enough for that cyan to not be cyan and be blue. And remember, these are all relative to each other. So the rest of these, the blue violet, the violet, and the red violet, all have to look a little bit more red than this blue that I just mixed. All right, so probably need a little bit more paint. So now I'm heading towards violet. So just start with this. I'm gonna hit the violet. I'm gonna go the other way actually. I'm gonna start with red. I see violet a little bit more on the red side generally. Kind of looks like a grape. That's too red. That looks pretty good for violet. Yep. So that's going to be my violet. Now that I have that, I can go for blue violet. So instead of going for that, I'm going to keep that there. And now I can visually see that violet there. And then this one just needs to be a little bit more violet, less blue. And that's how I'm able to compare the two. Well, actually the three colors. So it's a little different way of mixing than the way you guys were mixing with with just black and white and chroma. So you're controlling a lot more things when you're doing it this way. But what you do get is very vibrant colors. In these areas where typically you would get something that's usually brown. I think that's visually in between these two. Right, so now I can't even use that to compare because this is where it's going to make sense. That blue is useless to me, right? This is the blue that I'm using. So don't use that anymore. I'm going to start using just this. And since I already have the red, I can also use the red to compare. Right, so now I'm going to go for red violet. So I'm going to start with red. So I'm going for red violet and then add some blue to it. And I think I got pretty close right off the bat. So blue, blue violet, violet, red violet, red.